In this video, we will focus on part writing triads that are a fifth/fourth apart. To identify the distance between two chords, we focus on the roots. For example, a C chord to a G chord, we have the distance of up a fifth. If we move the G down an octave, we now have the distance of a fourth down from C to G. When we take an interval and switch what note is on the bottom, this is called interval inversion. Fifths invert to fourths and the other way around. Since fifths invert to fourths, the part writing procedures in this lesson will apply to chords a fifth or a fourth apart. Here is a progression from C to G in the key of C. So we analyze the chords as 1 and 5. We will begin by voicing the C chord using what we have learned about voicing individual triads. C is in the bass. Since this is a root position triad, C also happens to be in the soprano voice for this example. But any note of the chord could be in the soprano as long as it fits the range of that voice. From the soprano C, it will work to voice down in close position, giving us a G in the alto and E in the tenor. Next, we will voice the G chord. The first thing to do is to recognize that the distance from the root of the C chord to the root of the G chord is up a fifth. All chords within a key that are a fifth/fourth apart will have one common tone. The note that is in common between the C and G chords is the G note. We will keep the common tone, in this case G, in the same voice. Now the other two voices will move by step, meaning through the musical alphabet, to complete the G chord. The soprano has already been moved by step to land on the B note. We will move the E and the alto by step to the D note. Now we have a complete root position G chord with a doubled root as the standard for a root position triad. We will call this process of voicing root position triads that are a fifth/fourth apart Step 1. Let's review. Step 1. When voicing two root position triads a fifth/fourth apart, keep the common tone in the same voice, and move the other voices by step to complete the chord. Here is another example of Step 1. Here we have a C chord to an F chord in the key of C. The C is 1 and the F is 4. The C chord has already been voiced in 4 parts, and the soprano and bass voices are provided for the second chord. From C to F is up a fourth, so we will use Step 1. The common tone between a C and an F chord is C, so we will keep the C in the soprano voice. Since the soprano voice is already provided, we can see that the common tone is there. Next, we will move the alto and tenor notes by a step to complete the chord. The alto G will move to A, and the tenor E will move to F. We now have a completed F chord using Step 1. Now, Step 1 will not always work when voicing root position triads that are a fifth/fourth apart. In the following example, we have an E chord moving to an A chord in the key of A. So the analysis is 5 to 1. E down to A is a fifth. So let's try Step 1 to see what happens. First, the common tone between E and A is an E note. So let's keep the E in the tenor voice. Next, we need to move the other two voices by step to complete the chord. The soprano is already moving by step from B to A. Since the missing note in the A chord is C sharp, there is no way to move the G sharp in the alto by step to complete the chord. Therefore, step 1 does not work in this situation. We will use step 2. For step 2, move the top 3 voices, soprano, alto, and tenor, to the closest notes in the same direction to complete the chord. Since the soprano has already moved from B to A, we will move the alto and tenor voices down as well to complete the chord. The G sharp in the alto will move to E, the closest note of the A chord moving down, and the E will move to the C sharp, the closest note of the A chord moving down. In general, when voicing root position triads that are 5th/4th apart, we can use step 1. In the case that step 1 does not create a proper voicing, move on to step 2. There is one more possible way to voice root position triads of 5th/4th apart. We will call this step 2A. This is a procedure that works in place of step 2 to change the position of a chord from open to close or close to open. In general, 4-part writing compositions will stay in the same position, open or close. But when the voices need to go out of range to maintain the position, it will be necessary to change. Here is a C chord to a G chord in the key of C, 1 to 5. The 1 chord is voiced in close position. We can follow our steps to discover that step 1 will not work because the common tone between C and G is G. If this note is kept in the alto voice, the tenor cannot move by step to complete the chord. Step 2 will work. If we follow the alto and tenor voices in the direction of the soprano, we can move the alto from G to B and the tenor from E to G. Step 2 does work, but it puts the tenor voice into its extended range. It may be better in this situation to voice the second chord in open position. Step 2A, also known as the tertian leap, because it involves a leap from the third of the first chord to the third of the second chord. The third of the C chord is E. For step 2A, we will have the E in the tenor voice leap to the B, the third of the G chord. This leaves the missing note of the second chord, G. The G will stay in the alto voice. Notice that the C chord is in a closed position and the G chord is in open position. Since most compositions stay in the same position, it is generally not necessary to go to step 2A, the tertian leap, but it works well for changing positions. Let's summarize the steps for voicing root position triads of 5th/4th apart. Step 1. Keep the common tone in the same voice and move the other voices by a step to complete the chord. If step 1 does not work, step 2. Move the top 3 voices, soprano, alto, and tenor, to the closest notes in the same direction to complete the chord. If step 2 takes one or more voices out of range, step 2A, tertian leap. Leap the third of the first chord to the third of the second chord in the same voice. The other 2 notes will move smoothly by step or common tone to complete the chord.